We encourage the lease to purchase. We educate them on lease to purchase. We educate them on special incentives. And in return, all we're asking is for their name, email, and phone number, right? Our goal is to build a well-educated market, as well as with my relationships with the car industry, and I can get into that later. The goal is to, increase the supply chain. And as we scale up the Hudson River usage, which we're starting to see slowly, the more upstate you go, the harder it is. The more in the city or closer to the city, the easier it is. But one of the greater things this year is courtesy of Con Edison, NYSERDA, New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and the New York Power Authority, and I guess a couple others. They gave us 500 square feet at the New York International Auto Show this year, where we can do, membership, tell people about our organization, do a QR code on the vehicle, and people can then sign up. So it's one of our bigger now membership drives, which I was a blessing. But I guess when you work hard, people want to help you. Thank goodness. So next slide. Yeah. I know this is the Kia Soul, but I wish one day they might even make a more higher range Kia Soul. I always liked that vehicle. I thought it was durable. So I want to see those kinds of cars that they did 100 miles go 300 miles. I always think that was cool, So that always pushes the envelope, and it also makes more cars available because everybody has their own car. Next slide. So we've seen two different types of electric vehicle sales growth, and I apologize, but the second presentation that you'll receive will show two different charts. One showing this chart of like how far we've gotten, and now we've of course surpassed 1.3 million, and have a higher trend as we're going along into 2040, and it's just growing. Once you start hitting a million, things start to change really quick. So also when I'm, the Cybertruck coming out, that's going to have a big impact because I've seen the prices and I'm seeing that people want to buy them, and also Panasonic and all the battery companies have invested a lot of supply chain into Tesla, which means that they expect the Cybertruck to really sell well. Next slide.
Have you seen any in the wild there in New York?
Not yet, but I have friends that have them in California.
Ah, very nice. Yeah.
So,
by the way,
yeah, go ahead.
You typically use the chat for people online who have questions. So Colin, if you can monitor the chat so I don't put the box up on the screen in here. And Seth, if you happen to see any questions that you want to catch as you go, otherwise you can catch the chat questions at the end.
Sure. I haven't seen any, but I'll be more than glad to answer as I go along. And I can always stop. I'm not afraid to stop as I go along and answer any questions. So next slide. One of the bigger things that we're doing, and what I like to do, why I show this is for one single reason: how far we've gotten in a short period of time. When I started this program in 2016, that's how we were comparing electric cars. Look at the range now.
Yeah,
but the prices still the same. Instead of hours to recharge, especially with fast charging, it could be 45 minutes, 35, 40. And a lot of people, as I know, and we all know, when we do charging along the way, it's usually like a top off, but not like the full top off. It's just to get you from point A to point B. And usually you charge it as you get to the next side of your trip. So, but we do need more charging. It's one thing that I have been pushing for. New York City has charging deserts, believe it or not. The Hudson Valley, through work I did with NYSERDA, the State Energy Research and Development Authority for several years. There's a lot more level 2 in the communities in the Hudson Valley, but not above it and below it. So we still have work to do, but the Power Authority is building fast chargers, and they started north and are coming down south. So within the next 2 to 3 months, they'll start seeing more fast chargers, and then the Hudson Valley, and then going into the city. And they started with one of the larger gas station type food chains called Stewart's, which was a pretty strategically smart move because people know the brand, right? Why change the brand? They go in there, they fast charge, they grab their little whatever, they get out and they go. And it's a perfect marriage, frankly. So I as we grow this and I see the Power Authority growing it, I can always come back and show further examples of what we can expect. But it looks like their goal in the next 5 years to 7 is to electrify all of the New York State Thruway rest stops, as well as most of going up to Montreal from New York City, then inevitably going to Toronto. But that's their goal, is to cover at least the New York State Thruway, and then up to Montreal, which is not, it's another part of the New York State Thruway as well. Next slide. Everybody knows this, but the average cost about with delivery charge could be about 5 cents per kilowatt hour in some cases. In the Hudson Valley, in Con Edison, which is my territory, and in New York City, they have discounts, which make it about at night for that, charging at night after midnight, it goes down to about 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So I always try to tell people 10 cents a kilowatt hour, your best Tesla is 100 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt hours. It's about $10 to fill up your car. They go, oh, so it changes everything. Like I said before, we're going to have more fast charging across the New York State Thruway. And the Power Authority is even trying to reduce the total cost to the customer when they fast charge. It used to be one rate, and then they changed it, and now it's considerably less when you go to just top off for that fast charge. It's a nice thing. Next slide. We can go past this, but we know about all this stuff. These are the kinds of things that I bring home, that why I share this with everybody is I'm still having to bring this home to every new person all the time. These are the things I'm bringing, constantly telling people, because there's still a lot of skeptics out there. They just don't know what to think. So in New York City, you see, like I said, more people receptive to it. In Westchester County, where I live, there's even more, but there's still a lot of skeptics. And I've been warning them in a good, positive way that battery prices have considerably come down and will continue to until 2040. And slowly but surely, and really what it takes, at least for me, and we've seen a large increase in the Hudson Valley area and then in New York City, but more also in Long Island too, which are commuter areas to into the New York City, is just having simple, consistent presence of people like us, electric vehicle enthusiasts. The more you're out there, the more people see your cars, the more it is sheer soft advertising. It's the best soft advertising for a car company you can get. Exactly. And yeah. And every time I test drive a car, because I'm a member of the automotive press. So I'm literally test driving now the new Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid
Oh, nice.
premium. Yeah. So, and it's different than the first one I test drove. They gave me the 23, which was really, I was gave it a not so good review unless you were within about 18 to 21 miles of your house. But this one's a little bit more impressive, to say the least. So again, technology evolves year after year after year after year. I test drove the Rivian, and I'm talking with them, and they're seeing. When I was there, literally a guy was signing to buy his car.
Ah,
Literally bought his car in front of me. Um, so, and it, it there were people coming out and people going in, and there were a ton, plenty of cars that they have in inventory in New York City, which is an interesting strategy because if to give you context, when Tesla started, and I saw their original operation, it didn't seem as I would say it was more scrappy than the Rivian store that I'm seeing now. It quite surprised me. Um, but that's also when you see technology roll out. Uh, it's amazing because I mean, even the Tesla Mount Kisco store, which is near me in New York, was one of the larger bastions of holding the line for electric vehicles because the amount of sales people did from Bedford, Mount Kisco, the Westchester County area really helped uh, wake up New York State to that we could sell these cars because they didn't believe it, right? So to see Tesla grow, Tesla, to give you context, Tesla sometimes when they have rollouts of cars, they buy up parking lots around the area. They literally buy up mall parking lots, and they say we're just going to acquire your parking lot for the next 3 to 6 months. They did that with the Model 3, and I expect them to do that with the Cybertruck as well.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it will happen. I just my goal is to kind of keep an eye on it, and thank goodness the Mount Kisco store is near me. So I can get a barometer from the state just based on driving not too far from my house. It's a great thing. But I also am seeing a lot of Rivians. I'm also seeing in my area a lot of Mach-E's that I didn't expect. So again, everybody's got their brand. People are still Ford people. Some people are still Chevy people, and they're waiting for theirs. Yeah. No. Next slide. Okay, so this is great. So the tax credits used to be for EV charging and everything like that, but now the federal tax credit is just 7,500 off the MSRP. We have a clean pass in New York, which gives you discounts on driving the New York State Thruway, as well as bridges. So tolls and bridges, it helps reduce that cost. And in Long Island, they have an HOV lane, and you can drive that for free, of course. Uh, in New York State, we have a $4,000 New York State tax credit on top of the $7,500 one. And there are incentives, which I was trying to show the previous slide. Um, Westchester County, my county, is the first one to, because the state of New York originally had this program called Make Ready, where they will trench and do everything to get your property ready if you're a municipality for EV charging stations. Westchester County has now said they'll cover that cost for each town, village, and municipality. And I think there are about 25 in my county. And then NYSERDA covers the cost of the charging station. So somebody just has to say, I want to have charging stations. And within 3 to 6 months, they will have them, right? We've done even explaining to consumers what is the right dealership. which is the slide you've kept on. And we've done training sessions on that. Like when we've had not like in consumer events where it's just like a drive electric, but consumer events where it's more like a speak. And we tell people when you go to a dealership, ask the basic questions and you'll get an idea if that dealership is right for you or not. And it's really how much is the car? Can I lease an upgrade when a newer one comes? Make sure the dealer is interested in helping you get that electric car, right? Because sometimes they'll say, I'm not interested in getting, that one's okay, but have you tried this SUV? And that's not what we want. We ask them to tell us what the tax credits are, so we know that that dealer actually is knowledgeable. How do I get the tax credits?
Yeah,
Can I
very,
test? Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. So many folks here in Houston have found they go to a dealership and they're telling the dealership salespeople, what kind of tax credits and what kind of characteristics are on the cars. So that's really good that you're telling people they should find dealers that already know about those tax credits, especially since
Yep,
the credits are now available at time of purchase.
correct. So you do not want to be in a situation where they give you something that they shouldn't be, or a discount. Like they're not giving you the full discount that you deserve. And I've seen it. I've seen iterations of it, but now in New York State, you have to certify yourself to get the rebate in the first place with the state of New York, and you have to prove that you have inventory and all that stuff. It's a little bit more complicated. You can't just be a dealership nowadays. Um, you have to have charging stations, all of that kind of stuff to get the rebate in the first place. Um, and the people that have it usually have a salesperson who's dedicated, who knows, and they usually know inside and out everything. But we have seen some dealers that still don't know. Um, it doesn't happen too much in the city, but it doesn't happen more the upstate you go into more uh, country-esque towns, I guess. And then, of course, we ask them the basic question of how long will it take my car to arrive? Of course, you want to hear we have inventory here, so you pick your car. But if they give you a delivery date and the manager is there to help you, that's a good sign. I've seen that happen where sometimes they just have uh, test driving inventory in stock, uh, and they have something in the showroom, but it might take like a day or 2 or 3 days for your car to arrive, which is not bad. I'll take that. In Tesla's situation nowadays, I even see it. They're literally are shipping cars by the truckloads by the day. So they're timing it now, and they've gotten the science of having inventory of something inside the store, something to test drive, something to, and then to have the inventory of vehicles that are available for the customer that wants to buy them. So once the other car companies get there, it'll change, but they've got a long way to go to get to the methodology that, or the rhythm that Tesla has it at now. The only one I might see getting closer, believe it or not, I'm seeing more of a presence of it is Polestar. Um, they seem to have a good presence, and Rivian. Ford also came out first. I haven't seen many F-150 Lightnings. I think I've seen one in the wild, but Mach-E's, oh gosh, I can't even count anymore.
Great.
Maybe, yeah. It's not as many as Tesla's, If you're on the New York State Thruway, you'll see more Teslas, but in upstate, I'm starting to see more Lightnings, which I like to see because they need them up there. And I want to see more Rivians up there as well because I just test drove the R1T and it could easily handle upstate. Easily. It's a joke. So I'm trying to get it to like sheriff's departments up there and stuff.
Ooh, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ulster County Sheriff's Department. Um, when the minute I had the Mach E, I drove it up there and they said, and of course they were funny. They were funny. They tore the car apart.
Oh,
And then when they finally started asking me questions after they tore the car apart,
uh,
I don't mean like, like they were just like checking to see that everything was clean and everything like that. And then they started asking questions, but they were like, yeah, this would be a great car for the police chief to start.
oh,
But they told me, which is interesting, and I did not know, that the Ulster County is almost the size of the state of Vermont
ah,
when you go with, like, from one side to the other. So when I realized that, I said, "You need a you need a truck with a lot of range," and Rivian is the closest thing that I see that could handle it up there. The F-150 Lightning, I drove from my house in Westchester County up to Albany. And I luckily had 7 miles to get to the of range left to get to the charging station that VW has, the Electrify America charger. Uh, but but the Rivian, I could not get. It was hard to get the range down. So I'm confident, really, in Rivian's ability to make it. I think is what I'm trying to get at, and that's kind of the things we do here. With we because a lot of them are early adopters in my community, and it's nice to see. Uh, at first, I didn't think they would be, but they're 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 quiet about their environmentalism, but they love to show their car.
well, good.
So it's a pleasure, it's like the one good thing. So next slide. The evaluation for the future, if you want to just go forward of where I think things are going. So trucks, what I mean by that is we're already starting to prepare for semis here. We're also starting to prepare for delivery trucks like Exos. Have you guys might have heard of? Um, uh, which are like huge delivery vans. Um, I can send pictures of that if that would be helpful.
I'm not
Uh,
sure what the delivery
but
van.
yeah, ooh, it's not the size of a small postal vehicle, but it's the size of maybe a bigger FedEx truck, a way bigger FedEx truck. Um, Not the one that goes to your house, but the one that goes to the depot. I could try and find some pictures if that would be helpful, but I can provide these for the record afterwards. I will give you an updated PowerPoint and I'll give you some pictures of what I'm seeing. But one of the big things here that we're talking about, and we're trying to get into the legislators' heads as well, is the concept of microgrids. And what I mean by that is if you're going to have that much of electrification of your vehicles going forward, you need to have solar, small scale wind, and energy storage.
Yeah.
And it has to be local uh, because you need to reassure the grid at all times.
Yeah. So I see that Jason has raised his hand. Jason, did you want to have a question or a comment?
Hi, Jason.
Yeah. So one question I had when you were talking about, penetrating markets, I was curious. I know car shares are real popular, especially like around New York City. Are they adopting a lot of EVs too?
That's a funny question. Um, and I say this because, Jason, because it's really funny. When I worked for the New York Power Authority and we started that clean commute program, they came to us. Zipcar came to us and all those car sharing guys, and they're like, "We want to get involved in this and that. We want to get into electric vehicles." And simply put, the minute "Who Killed the Electric Car" happened back in the day, they ran from it as far as they can, and now you see Hertz running from it as well. And I'm going to tell you what my answer to that is too, because a lot of people have started asking, "What do I think about um, Avis or whatever getting out of it?" Uh, I've seen Hertz almost go under once, and it wouldn't surprise me if it happened again, because the smaller pop up rent an EV thing is going to take off. Those like I think you have one in Austin that I know of, a company that I was about to rent one, but then Hertz finally had one in the stables, so I took theirs at the Austin airport when I was there to see my mom. But um, I don't see car sharing companies leading that charge. I thought they would. I thought they would back in the day when I was involved with it with Dan Sperling and the guys in California that were conceptually working on sharing programs with electric vehicles. I would see, and the answer also what I would see, and I'm seeing more of this too in California, which is logical. That to me is logical. People sharing their cars off an app, like this guy. Oh, I forget his name, but he owns a bunch of Teslas, and then he has an app now where you can just borrow it for whatever. So I don't see the answer is to your question is I see small startups popping up now, especially as the economy is shifting, and I don't see the big rental car companies that you see at airports leading that effort. I don't see it. And I don't see Uber leading that effort except for the individual. If they finally get the point that it's saving them money, which in my community, I was able to do with the taxi drivers, because what I did literally, they gave me this, I did an investment thing, is I left an EV in my house and I would go with these drivers around and I would just talk to them, and I would do a driver an hour, and I did every driver in my community until I was done. It took me 2 months, 2.5 months. Once I was done, I saw them start to go to hybrid. And then some, like I said, some of them are going electric. So it's really interesting. It's that butts and seats concept again of talking to people, which is what we do best, our drive electric programs. Um, but again, the small car sharing program that you're seeing now, or the car rental program, which is kind of like a car sharing that you see in Austin happening, and the one in California, which is a startup, I see them doing better than Hertz, Avis, or any of them at all, or Zipcar, or any of them. I definitely don't see Zipcar leading, or any of those kinds of rental folks leading that effort at all. It's going to be people like us.
Because I was seeing a lot of folks have bad experiences with like the Hertz and the Avis when they get an EV and they weren't expecting one or they've never seen one before and they don't know what to do with it. So I was
Yep.
thinking maybe Zipcar would be a better place to do something like that because you only get it for a couple hours and then
Right.
you take it back and plug it in and the lot where you picked it up maybe has plugs, so it'd be a super easy way to get butts and seats. But yeah, no, I feel you on that one.
I wish I saw it. I wish I wish it was something that it wasn't, but it's not happening. Taxi drivers in Manhattan are going electric. There's this brand that's called Revel, Revel, and they are doing literally electric car taxi service. It's off an app, so it's like Uber but EV, right? Get the Uber, but it's EV, and they are expanding their brand so much in New York City. In another 2 to 3 years, I see them potentially going nationwide with their efforts, which is basically then you take the assets of a Hertz and an Avis and you put it into taxi fleets, which I see that working. I just, but I don't see the rentals. They weren't smart the last time, so they're not going to be smart this time. When we have an economic shift, I hope that helps everybody.
So Seth, you mentioned hybrids in types of cars. Are plug-in hybrids popular there in New York?
Yes, they are actually starting to become more popular than electric cars. Because people like the what would I call it? Because they're so addicted, unfortunately. It's the fact that they know that they can always go to a gas station when
Right.
in doubt. When in doubt, I know I can drive to a gas station and I can go see whoever I want to, no matter how far it is. And that eases a lot of minds here. There are some even that are just only hybrid. I've met people that are only hybrids. They will not do a plug yet. But the majority of adopters or new members that we see, believe it or not, are not electrics. There are some electric members, but the majority of them have become more plug-in hybrid.
So there's a mic there on
Yes,
the,
sir.
I have a question.
Yeah, just no, it's my first time here and you seem very knowledgeable. So could you just introduce yourself and where that
Sure.
knowledge comes from, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to get the book because some people go, "Yeah, what does that mean?" So I'll get the book. I used to work for the state of New York doing this with the New York Power Authority and the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. I started with NYSERDA in the 90s, and I'm getting some books, so bear with me. Um, uh, uh, and then, like I said, that clean commute program was, my boss said I want to do a couple of train stations. And because they knew I knew how to sell, because when I was up at Albany, I insisted on getting back then posters, not just, I didn't just manage like the buses, the $100 million of bus incremental cost money. So I wasn't just like a program manager. My goal was to ensure that people knew that these buses were covered from the Environmental Bond Act because it was a part of the law. And the MTA used to give us the hardest time. And then finally, because I knew people on both sides of the aisle, I called up, I asked my boss, "Listen, can I call the guy in the governor's office, please?" And they said, "Sure." So I call him up and he's just like, "Put it in an email. Don't worry about it. Just put it in an email." So I explained to him that we went through every administrative remedy known to humanity to beg them to put the banners in the buses or even outside the back of the bus. I didn't even care if it was inside or outside. I just wanted a banner. And finally they did it. When I left there was a running joke from one of my buddies that's still there, who said I was able to get the best advertising in the any Bond Act program. It was a lot of fun. We also placed back in the day when they did Who Killed the Electric Car, and they did they were donating out those low speed electric vehicles or the golf carts on steroids, so like GEM and the Think Mobility. what was it, the Think Neighbor back then. We donated those to New York City parks, Niagara Falls, for the hydroelectric dam, and as well as for the border and all those people, mostly government institutions. We placed about 450 of them, and we also placed them at the State University of New York campuses. When I left, I formed two companies. One failed only because I was too far ahead, unfortunately. I was doing electric scooters and electric bikes in 2004, 2005. Way early, way early. So it was a wrap. After that, I formed a consulting company called ETS Energy, which was energy efficiency, transportation, and sustainability. If you want anything that, I cover it. That one still lasted. And after I partnered with an engineering firm, I had written a blog post literally on a blogger, you know, the original Google blogger format that they have or had back then. I wrote a story saying, and it was just my opinion based on seeing the Cash for Clunkers program and how it was doing and what it could be doing. I said, we need to be converting all cars to electric. I said, it makes no sense. We have Hummers that are 14 miles a gallon, and you have an electric car that can get over 100. I said, the mathematics are not there, and it's just, you know, my blog post, I think, is still on my website, but I even wrote that, you know, the military needs to get involved in this too, because it will save them money and trillions of dollars on fuel costs. After I wrote that, and I was partnering with the engineering firm, and we were doing a wide variety of sales of products and things, they contacted me and said, hey, would you like to write the second edition of the book, Build Your Own Electric Vehicle, from Bob Brandt? So the first version was written in 1973 by Bob. Bob was a NASA engineer who actually worked on the lunar rover. And he wrote a book, and he also showed all the different conversions that were out there and that were available. And I guess it did so well for all those years that they wanted to do a second edition. So here's the second edition of the book, which I will gladly send a signed copy of this. And I did also the third edition of the book, which is, I'll tell the story about that, which is really cool. So we do the second edition of the book, and I go to the first time event, mind you, was this scrappy little company called Tesla. Elon had just gotten out of Letterman, and he holds this event at IMG Model Studios, which is like Midtown Manhattan, like around 45th, 47th Street, right along the Hudson River. And we go there, and I see him, and I see, of course, none other than Franz von Holden. They're standing next to each other, you know? And I went up to him after, you know, it was like this processional getting in and saying hello to him. And it was like the king, you know, the king and king. And it was just, I literally handed him a little flyer, and I said, thank you for building your own electric vehicle. It means the world to me, and it means the world to a lot of people. And I got to talking with him and Franz, and one thing led to another. And he said, when you do the third edition of the book, let us know, and we'll share as much information with you as possible. You know, they're open source, right? So that nothing I'm saying, it's not like I'm saying something that's out of there. And so we showed the build of in the third edition of the book, which I'll provide to the club as well. A third edition, we did the build of a Model S. And I've sent signed copies of the books to Elon and Franz, and Franz has always been acceptable, not acceptable, approachable, engaged, with the community and out there, you know, like when you can't see Elon, you'll see Franz out there, and it's good because it shows that they get it, that it's people like us that are making this happen. It's exciting. So I did that third edition of the book with them, and believe it or not, they loved the third edition so much that it's in mainland.
Ah, you've got the Chinese edition. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that and this book I did called, because it was back then, this nouveau riche concept. You guys are going to be like, what did he write about? It's called green lighting. The concept of not CFLs but LEDs and OLED. You know, now I don't know if you probably have seen it, that there's this video now, and it's going to be on the All-Star weekend. You're going to see OLED on the court.
Mm.
So, you know, we were, you know, talking about that kind of stuff as well. So it's exciting. I wrote those books with McGraw-Hill. I have a brand called the Green Living Guy, which is greenlivingguy.com. I'm a member of the Automotive Press, like I said, so I get the same cars that Automotive Magazine, Car and Drive, or Road and Track, Electrek, which, by the way, which is funny, and it was almost a little weird, scary at first, but it's funny. Seth, the guy who owns Electrek, lives like a county for me, like not a county, a town for me. He lives literally like 15 minutes from here, from my house. So it's exciting. We're doing a lot to make electric vehicles happen, and it's also great to see that if you put in the work and you put in the effort, that people will help you. The state will help you. That's a really that was where I got to a point where I was like, wow, something's going. We're doing something. You know what I mean? And that meant a lot to me, to say the least. So yeah, I've greenlivingguy.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X. You'll find me there. I'm on YouTube. All those kinds of places. So I've been doing this since the 90s. I loved it. What happened was I got to see this one data sheet, a fact sheet, literally in the 90s, from the U.S. Department of Energy, and it basically said that if you put solar to electric, it's completely, you know, emission free, tailpipe wise, and I was sold. And I didn't care that electric cars were only back then maybe 55 miles of range. And the reason why I knew back then was really simple. I remember when I got a pager. I remember then when I got my first Motorola, which had a battery about this size, you know, this thick, you know, and then it got smaller and smaller and smaller. And now I'm literally doing this presentation on my phone. So if they could do that with a phone, if you take the phone, instead of holding it, if you do it flat and you put four wheels on it, it's almost excluding motors and everything like that. The tech inside of our phone can do so much more than imaginable. So, and I saw technology evolving then. I remembered when there was the Betamax, and then it went to VHS, and then it went to DVD, and then it went to streaming. So technology has a way of evolving.
And it's a good comparison with the cell phones. A lot of times I tell people, if you can charge your cell phone at night when you're asleep, you can charge your car at night when you're asleep.
Absolutely. And here's another one that we tell people when they're commuting to go to work. There's two places that there's two of the best places, or times, you should say, when you should charge your car. You go to work and you go to sleep. You go to work is during the day. And if you just have it trickling all day long, the amount of range you'll get is enough to get you from point A to point B. Nowadays, with any electric car or any plug-in hybrid electric car. Well,
Thinking of trickle charging, have you looked into wireless charging? So in other words, having a pad?
yes. I believe that that's the future for heavy duty. Because I've seen that on buses, and I was extremely surprised. But also to lead into that question, which I see the air ball that you just gave me. When I left the state of New York, right before I left it to go to the New York Power Authority, I was with NYSERDA, and I went down south to White Plains. So I went from Albany to Westchester County and worked in New York City back then. But we talked about this concept of taking the highway from Saratoga Springs to Albany, New York, which was like the commuter hub, right? And taking one lane and making it magnetic electric.
Mhm.
Now we see it in other countries,
Mhm.
right? It's starting to become a thing, and it is the best virtual way of going forward in the future. I think that it's the most logical, because then you're charging as you go along.
Yeah, that's good. So back to your chapter, the Hudson River Valley chapter. So about how many
Yes.
members do you have and how often do you meet?
Wow. So we've got a membership list that started, well, let's put it this way. Before COVID, it was about 150 to 200, but also we were just the Hudson Valley. After COVID, it went down. I've now got it back up to about 50 people that are engaged, whether not dues, not paying dues, full members, volunteers, and whatever. So we've got 50 people that are core. And I expect after this new thing with the auto show, it to only go exponential at this point. Because even if we think about it, if we're at 100, if we get up to 150 or 200 people, that's enormous. But my goal is to have to have captains along the Hudson Valley doing drive electric programs. Because right before COVID, we had the most drive electric events, and we still do, of any chapter.
Mhm.
So because we're so large in geography, I have to manage well, right now I know of 5, and I've just gotten emails for another 4 events just for the Drive Electric Earth Day. And then during Drive Electric Earth Week or Drive Electric Month in September, we have on average now of about 7 to 10 that I'm managing
Wow.
at any given year. We're working right now in my village to do another Drive Electric. We're calling it Drive Electric Briarcliff. I will share with you the flyer that we're giving out. It's that we took which is, the constant evolution as you're growing organizations. We took a PowerPoint that we used to do just for the Hudson Valley, a PowerPoint, and we got it shrunk to a double-sided flyer. So I will share that with you. It's a very exciting thing to see. And then once we're done with that, our goal is to get, like they have campaigns here, which are they're called CEC campaigns. So it's these climate committees, environmental committees that they have that the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation did. So if 15 people in a town or any municipality sign up to get electric cars and you can prove it, the state of New York will give that village up to $15,000 to improve the area for doing electric vehicles. So enough to basically build a couple of charging stations.
Nice, yeah.
Yep. And we've started out, and I've already and I'm getting emails from people before I even really started the program, we have 5 people already signed up in our village. So it's not going to take long for this one to hit 15. My goal is to hit 50.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because if you can get people to, if we can get 50 in a community through a campaign, it'll be easier to show how one small village can pull it off. You guys can pull it off. So, and we'll help other towns and villages across the state to replicate it, which is part of what I'm looking to do also. So you take this small program, and because I've seen other towns and villages try to do it, but they weren't effective. So we're trying to improve the Drive Electric campaign because, like I said before, the state wanted to do 825,000 cars to be all electric. We're only at about 200,000. We have a long way to go. So these types of Drive Electric programs, I think, are essential.
So one thing I'm going to want to have our group here talk about after we talk with you is about the new vehicles, the Fisker Ocean and the Cybertruck. So have you seen any Fisker Oceans in New York?
Great question. So I saw one at an auto show, but I have not seen one yet in the wild, but I've heard of people that are putting down deposits in Manhattan for the car. But I did drive back in the day when Fisker got rebought, that Fisker Karma, or the Karma, I should say. I drove the Karma. And I know that they did work with a dealership in Albany, and that dealership bought 30 cars from them.
Mhm.
And they sold the cars. So that's why Karma, I think, is going also to a storefront opportunity, because you get to see a car, touch it. It's that butts and seats. But when I see a Cybertruck, Rob, I'll be emailing you.
Okay.
Because most likely I'll be the guy who will stop, get out of my car, and take a picture of it.
Okay.
Because I was that guy let's put it this way, I was that guy with the Model X. I'm doing it with a Cybertruck.
Thinking of other vehicles, so our national organization last year and this year got to use the location where the Aptera is being developed in Carlsbad, California. So I don't know if you've personally gone to either of those or if you've just participated via Zoom with those. Last year I went in person, and the facility that they're building up for Aptera is very impressive. This year I couldn't make it. So have you followed the development of the Aptera?
It's funny. A friend of mine who, when I was working to consult Sustainable Westchester on their electric vehicle program, was the only fan that I ever knew in the entire Hudson Valley or Hudson River region now, who is the ultimate fan of Aptera. So we're talking 2019, 2018, he told me about it. Of course, I've been watching their evolution since way back when they were just this concept, and now they're evolving. I think what happened was when you started seeing 3-wheeled gas engine type vehicles being used in the summer around here, people started getting interested in it. And I think those 3-wheeled vehicles have a potential to really be something in the future. So it's been a pleasure to watch Aptera grow and to see that they're getting funding and they're going to be making something of themselves. Because it's a think of the miles per gallon you'll get of that car. It mesmerizes me.
Yeah, solar on it, I mean, people will be able to drive with the car powering itself from the sun, as well as it getting an extremely high number of
Yep.
miles per hour. So
And I
Yeah.
mean, especially in Texas, that's that's the ultimate.
I cover those big distances in Texas. So we have a question from
Yeah.
Rob.
Yes, thank you, Seth, for hosting this and coming here. My
My
question
pleasure.
is, in your chapter and state of New York and Northeast, what's the number one selling point for EVs? Here in Texas, it'll be save you money and save you money, freedom, freedom from utilities, EV with a PV, uh, get away from the monopolies and the government and the cartels. And what is it in New York in your chapter?
Well, in '01, it started off as a couple of reasons. One, a lot of people liked the idea when we gave this program that they were getting off the grid back then and getting off of oil companies. Nowadays, at least the early adopters, I would say, they do it for altruistic reasons and the environment, and they don't care the cost. Right? But the people that I see that like Dan Sperling, I'm not Dan Sperling, Michael Sperling hosts a chat group for the entire Hudson Valley, and inevitably is going to grow it to the Hudson River. And people like the idea of the savings. They love the idea of the tech. There are now the people that are not involved in the chat group, but people I've spoken with at Tesla, they like it for, again, the altruistic reasons, but not for the environment. They like the fact that when they bought a Model X P100D, that it could blow away a $250,000 Porsche. And they said, for $100,000, I'm able to blow away a $250,000 Porsche. Sign me up. I mean, so I've heard it cover the gamut. You have to, because New York City is such a diverse area, it depends on each person and what they want. Some people say, I want 350 miles. So then you know right now, unless they're going to get a Rivian, which is most likely not, they're going to need a plug-in hybrid. If somebody's looking for an around the town car, because when they go on a trip, of course, they're flying and they don't have to worry about it, I tell them an electric car. But I'm also getting the people too. We had an event in Chappaqua, New York here last year in the summer at a farmer's market. We must have had over 350 people, and we had over about 20 plus 25 different cars, and each one was different, mind you. Each one was different. And then we were at this event in Yorktown, and there were 40 different cars for 400 people during the 4th of, for the fireworks. Everybody comes by and does two things. One, they go to the brand they love. So when they saw the Jeep, the people that like Jeep go to Jeep. The people who like Ford go to Ford. The people that like Tesla go to Tesla. The people that like Hyundai went to the Hyundai. And it was just brand by brand by brand. And people were there all the time. Now, people walked around to see other cars, but the majority of people that went to a car went because it was their brand and they could wrap their head around it more. Some people like Volvo and they'll just go to the Volvos. Some people, I know one person here in my town, she won't buy anything but Volvo. So I'm constantly showing her the Volvo electrics and test driving. And she's waiting for the range to get better because right now the range is around 250 at the best. And they're like, it needs to be 350, 400 before I'm going to consider it. So, like I said, it depends on the person, but everybody loves the savings. And when we used to do our campaigns in the Hudson Valley, we would encourage the heck out of people to say, if you have the resources and the money, which a lot of businesses did, which was great because we were able to help solarize the Hudson Valley with about 4 megawatts, just by me helping with like companies realizing that if they did the solar and the electric car, the amount of tax benefits they would have gotten were through the roof. So they did it all. They loved it. So we got like this one big lighting company, another engineering company, and 3 other. Believe it or not, Pete Seeger's actual daughter bought it for the estate and then for the big office that they have, where they still allow Hudson Clearwater to have meetings there.
Yeah, there's also the national security aspect.
Oh, yeah.
Sending your money to tyrants and dictators and would-be
Well,
terrorists, and so.
I was about to say that to complement that, your statement on that is when I used to work for the New York Power Authority and they would go to me, "What are you doing?" And mind you, this is after 9/11. I would say and I'll be nice for the camera here. I would say I'm effing OPEC on a daily basis. I constantly am promoting the reduction of the reliance on imported oils, the need to be self-reliant, and that it's a major national security issue for us to be relying on countries like Iran. Like, look at what the last several $billions did. It's only made more proxy wars with the Houthis and whatever right now. So and we're seeing it real time. And it's funny because, when there are times of peace, people go, "What do I need an electric car for?" And I'm like, "For national security reasons." And they go, "We're at peace." I'm like, "There will be war. One day there will be a conflict. It will come." So this is the ultimate national security safety net for us. And also for people, I always explain as well that when they made, I'm not sure, and I forget it every time, whether it's the GNP or the GDP, and they exclude utility prices. Well, that was because back then when they made the figure, the cost of utilities was nothing. Now it is a major, real hard cost in our budgets. And for some, it could be, I've seen some bills around here that would blow my mind. $5,000 bills, $6,000 bills a month for power. So,
Thousand?
well, when the bigger the building, yeah.
Oh,
In
yeah.
Con Edison, New York City. Yeah. Yeah. That's the concept of they wanted to go electric to save their fuel costs. So they have like delivery companies.
Sure.
And I'm sorry too. Let me clarify, and I have to do this for everybody. When you think of the city, it's not just Manhattan. There are 5 boroughs. So when I talk to some of these fleet companies, they're like in Queens or in Brooklyn, or Staten Island or the Bronx. So we're covering not just middle, Manhattan, but all the other boroughs, which have millions of people alone, living there.
Yes, sir. I didn't get your name, the Green Living guy. I know that.
That's Lightman.
Okay. I heard you say that people, have their brands, and my brother actually works for Audi. So that's kind of my brand.
Right.
Too.
Yeah.
And I was just curious what your thoughts on the e-tron, and then ultimately, Audi being a Volkswagen company, we depend on them to bring the EV to the mass market, basically. So what's your opinions and thoughts on that?
Well, VW is one of the largest inventory of batteries for car companies, and next to Tesla in the world, because they, like you said, have Porsche, Audi, and VW. VW now, you have the ID4, the ID5. I could be wrong, but the ID6 might be coming out. But then you have the minivan, and that ultimate minivan, I heard, already has over 100,000 deposits.
Wow.
And I heard that at the auto show last year, and it hasn't even come out yet. So it could be more. It could be more. Another thing I saw too, like I worked with this company called Merchants Fleet, which is one of the largest fleet management companies, and they'll buy the fleets for the company. So like you outsource them to do this job for you, and they got bought into from this Dubai company. They bought with a B, $1 billion worth of electric vehicles that are going to be hitting private fleets across the country. And I went to their conference and I saw people from all over the country there. So, I mean, this will be hitting fleets everywhere. I'm not just talking like the Chevy Silverado that I saw, but like big delivery, a delivery truck, like those big laundromat delivery vehicles that have all the stuff in them. Unistart, I think it is. There are these massive delivery vehicles that are going to start to be seen all around the country. And what I mean by that is that everybody's got a brand, and from companies to people. When I did Drive Electric programs and we used to do forums like this where I would be talking to people, I literally would have people pull me aside and go, "Where's my Hyundai or whatever?" Now, with the Audi, I've driven that Audi e-tron. I've seen it evolve too. I couldn't be more impressed with, Audi just never ceases to amaze me with their ability to deliver. I never thought I would see that. Porsche, the last time I test drove their plug-in hybrids was way back when, and then I just recently at Merchant's Fleet got to test drive the Taycan, and that thing's fast as well. And I don't know if you know this too, but there's a national working group for charging stations, which includes the car companies. And Porsche is the only one that is pushing that they want a fast charge to be as simple as going to the gas station. So their goal is to have gas stations or fueling stations for EVs that it'll take you 3 to 5 minutes to fuel up.
We know that Porsche is pushing the 800 volt in the
Yeah.
truck now has the 800 volt, and probably more manufacturers are going to go to that. One of the advantages is to be able to speed up the charging. Yeah.
I've spoken with my counterpart who now runs the electric vehicle department at the New York Power Authority, who's part of this working group because it's one of the larger public utilities. And Porsche is insisting, and they're only saying it that we want it to be as quick as it is to fill up a gas car. That's how they're pushing it. And, then the utilities are going, all right, we'll push it. But they are adamant about it. And I agree with them because when I met Bill Ford Jr. and we pressed him on what he thinks will make electric vehicles work in the state and in the country, and he said, when you have charging stations everywhere.
Well, we do know that you probably have a higher percentage of folks in New York City that live in apartments and don't have a home place to plug in, meaning that, once a
Nope.
week have to go to a fast charger, where Houston's got a very large percentage of the population where it's someone living in a single family home and they have a place
Yes.
to park and charge. Folks in cities that are more dense where they can't. Yeah, it's much more important that you have fast charging available. Yeah.
Correct. They've started rolling that out in the most of what I mean by that. Revel, that company I told you that's doing the taxi, they have opened up now finally 2 of their fast charging stations so that people, like you said, that live in the city but park in the city and still need to get that fast charge, they can use now a Revel fast charging station, and the city of New York discounts the cost of it as well.
Okay. So you are seeing strong support from the state government
And the city.
and the city. Okay.
And the city. Yes. Yes, Senator Pete Harcum is my state senator. He is the head of the Environmental Conservation Committee,
Oh,
which
nice.
is which is big because it used to be controlled by the city. The Environmental Conservation Committee used to be ruled by the city since I started watching state government until about 2 years ago. It mesmerizes me. So we got our state senator to do this, and him and I are the ones that are talking about electric school bus incentives as well as acceptance, market acceptance, because you're starting to see a lot of these the people that run the transportation groups, we're starting to see some kickback, some nervousness. I think it might have to do, frankly, between all of us in the room and whoever was listening, I think it probably has a lot to do with the fact that those maintenance support people will be losing jobs or different restructuring, and that scares the living heck out of them. So, but electric buses are coming, and that they will become a big thing. They probably will get a lot more prevalence first in New York City and then go out from there. But it's going to happen. And we're starting to see, at least in my region, we have the first one in the state. It's the first bus conversion company. So they'll take one of your old buses and convert it to electric. I'll be, if you'd like, after the state senator and I actually are going up there on the 16th to meet him, the company, and check out the wares. So I'll send pictures back
Oh,
to
nice.
to you all to take a look. But I believe that in New York alone, we have 48 to 50,000 school buses.
That's a
We have
huge,
more, yeah, more than California.
thinking of other vehicles that are great to electrify, are any garbage trucks, garbage collection trucks that you're aware of in New York State electrified?
Not yet. They're, but Mac has already built one. So I foresee in the next 3 to 5 years, you will start to see electric garbage trucks be talked as much as electric school buses.
Okay. Yeah, those things, the types of vehicles, also like postal vehicles, ones that do a lot of start and stopping, one house, the
Yep.
next house, they're fantastic to electrify. Yeah.
The problem that happened, I'll just let people know, it's a true story. The contract that the federal government let for electric postal vans, the company couldn't do it. They thought they were capitalized enough, but they weren't. Then this other company came in and tried to help them, and they couldn't do it. And now you have Canoe. Have you ever heard of Canoe EV?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Canoe is doing but they're delivering the vehicles now. So postal vans, look, I remember when I was working for the state of New York, we were pushing postal vans. It's the most perfect application for electric vehicles there is out there. It has a fixed route on any given day and doesn't even come close to driving what an electric vehicle does. What I am seeing here, though, which you will be, I don't know if you see out there, but I'm just curious. We are seeing in my community and in other communities more Amazon delivery vehicles going electric.
We are starting to see them here. Yep.
Yep. I see them more regularly. It's been about a year. It's been here, and then there's more of them. I can tell there's more because I drive one place and I'll see one, and then I'll drive 5 minutes later and I'll see another. So I know it's not the same one following me, right? But it's happening. And so the other one too, which was a big one, and I'll land after this, was the cops. A lot of the Westchester County had a hard time convincing people. Ulster County had a hard time convincing people. The more upstate you go, you can't even talk about it. But what happened was in Detroit, every year the cops have this thing where they evaluate the cars from Ford. So like because that's one of their largest vendors, and they determined that the Mach E was a perfect cop car. This report, and the only police department in the entire state of New York that said we're going to go all in first was the NYPD.
Ah,
When NYPD did it, Westchester County did it, and now Ulster County is doing it. So we're still in the situation with like any adoption of any electric vehicle where somebody's got to buy it first. You got to kick the tires, get in the car, get in the vehicle and feel comfortable, and then they'll do it. But it's permeating across every vehicle platform that you could have. More taxis, like I said, are doing it, and if they're not, they're going hybrid or plug-in hybrid. And I will start to bet, besides Amazon, that inevitably we'll see school buses, and the real question will be when the semis really roll out and what that's going to do to the grid also. But that's it.
yeah, we've heard that one of the early applications of electrified semis are going to be on I-10 between Houston and the west coast of the US, because you've got these long stretches, and they can also be autonomous, and you can
Yes. Yes.
to cover those areas, and of course they'll make stops at the appropriate places to charge, and
Yeah. And they could inevitably they could figure out, and hopefully they will, you could put a solar roof on there and you could curb the cooling costs. And why is that important? Because the cooling costs are the number one thing that's a drainer, or heating costs are the number one thing that's a drainer on range. So if we can finally put that solar roof on there, we can extend the range of electric cars. So yeah.
good vehicle to have solar on top of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd like to ask the guys who are familiar with the Audis. So what do folks on the inside think of the e-tron?
Well,
If you can
least
Thanks.
the lead technician who is technically the EV guy who fixes all the EVs, he purchased a e-tron S.
Okay,
So
that
that says a
right
lot,
there.
right? And ultimately, it is the future. Audi is their manufacturing facilities. They're completely converting to EVs, or at the very least hybrids. And they're one of the leading brands, so I think that ultimately everybody else will follow.
One thing I like about what Audi is doing is if you are a participating e-tron dealer, you have to have not one, but two sets of fast chargers at the dealership. So anybody who comes in and just wants to top their vehicle off for free, you can do it, sit there and have that luxurious Audi experience while you wait, and it won't take long as we go along, as technology ramps up. It's the best thing. The other one I love too about Audi is their rental car program that you guys have. And once I start to see more e-trons on that, I'm going to start renting more across the country with it. So but man, that e-tron is an impressive vehicle. You step on the pedal and you feel just like you're in a gas, if not better, vehicle. And the torque, what I call it, that head snap, is more gentle than on a Tesla, to say the least. So it's better for that Audi refined driver.
And the Lamborghini?
Oh, the Revolte, the B12 hybrid. I'm excited to see that. That's going to be really really cool. It's 3 motors, 2 in the front, and then 1 in series in the rear. It's going to be next level.
All right.
When I started promoting their hybrids back in the day, and I've always wanted Lamborghini to go electric, because the amount of engineering, creativity, and excellence that they put behind a vehicle, you know that when they do it, it's going to be beyond top notch. It's going to be the best of the best, and they will not allow for anything to ruin their quality or their brand. So to see a V12, did you say 3 motors?
Yes, sir.
That's going to be something. That's yeah, they're going to do a great job with that car. And I know just because of, I don't know, for doing all this stuff, you start to meet people. I literally know the dealer who does Jake Paul after every fight. So he is flown in to every Jake Paul fight. And not that I like Jake Paul, but he flies, because I don't, but he flies him to every fight, and he picks a Lambo every time. So to get a V12 with 3 motors and a battery pack beast, oh my gosh, that's going to really help a lot of people feel more comfortable with electrified cars, I think, because they always go for the Lambo, the Maybach, and there's going to be a Maybach electric soon too. And when people start to see that, people are going to take notice. Because
I totally agree with like Elon Musk. The Roadster was a cool car, or the Model S was a super cool car, and you know, like it or not, Audi is a cool car, and when people are driving cool cars, it gets other people to want to.
It's a style, it's a vibe, it's a whole experience being an Audi driver. And I've seen people that are Audi drivers, and I know what you're saying, and I can tell you that the car does not miss a beat. The only thing that was the problem with the car had nothing to do with the car. Zero. It had to do with the lack of infrastructure in the state of New York. And what I mean by that was I had it, and talk about timing. You know, sometimes I have this timing that's just mesmerizing to me. So I had the e-tron, I go to drive it on the Hudson Valley, and I'm plugged in, and this guy pulls up with what? An e-tron. And he goes, let me know when you're going to charge. And he starts telling me all this stuff, all the complaints that he has of the e-tron, and to make the charging better and this and that. But he loves it, and he won't go anything but e-tron. And this guy owns this real estate company that covers the entire country. Like those real estate TV shows that you see with those real estate people that they turned into celebrities. It's his company.
Wow.
But he loves the e-tron. And this guy only does high-end real estate. High end. Like anything under 2 million, he doesn't even touch. He's that kind of guy. He'll let Houlihan and Lawrence have it. He loves the e-tron, except for the fact that he can't get home yet to his charger. And I told him, stick around, because New York's working to revamp all the charging stations. He still keeps the car. And he said, I'll change it once they put the charging station. My lease will be done, and I'll get one. But man, I'm telling you, there's a following. And the first time I ever test drove it, which gives you furthermore the essence of what the type of people that are driving it. The first time I test drove it was at a Formula FIA event. So the FIA electric. At one of those events, Audi was one of the major sponsors in offering test drives. It was the only company doing it. So if you have people going to Formula One type racing, test driving this car, that's the kind of people they're going for. And man, that car did not, it held its own more than enough. It's an Audi. Like I've driven A4s, A7, all of these cars, gas. So to then drive the e-tron, it feels just like an Audi, but better. So
Awesome.
Congratulations for working for a great car company that's going to move the electric vehicle market forward, because they also have 3 other, like you said, 3 other car companies that they own as well.
I will say one more thing. Another one to look out for is the Q6. They're planning on
Okay.
that being the more affordable EV through Audi, and it's supposed to be more, I guess, it's supposed to bring more people into the EV market. And I don't know what they mean.
Okay.
That's straight from the CEO. He just said that recently, so something
There'll
to.
probably be like a Model 3 type price, you know, the $30,000 type car versus a $50,000 type car or a $70,000 type car. That might be what he's offering. He's suggesting, which wouldn't surprise me because you could do a Model 3 now and probably for their supply chain get the price down with tax, well, with the tax rebate that we have now with the federal government. You can get close to 37,000, 37,500. Then you're at 30,000. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for it, and I'll make sure to test drive it for you.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. And yeah, when I test drove that e-tron, I just wanted to keep driving it. And what I mean by that is the vehicle just, there's certain cars you get in it and you go, let's have some fun, because you just know it's going to drive well for a while. And that's that kind of what you can expect out of e-tron. Just a full on great experience every mile along the way. Yeah.
Thinking of where we hope to see the e-tron coming up, I mentioned at the beginning in April, we have the Drive Electric Earth Day on the 20th of April. So if it's possible, whether it's a personal one or one from a dealership, if we could get an e-tron and one of you guys or one of your compatriots to bring it out there, as I said, it's all volunteer event. We don't want to advertise any given brand, but we want a variety of brands out there. Of course, you're free to talk to the public any way you want to, you know, kind of thing. So that would be great. Yeah. Colin saw smiles here. Yeah. Yeah.
The more cars, the better. Once you show a diversity of cars, like I said, people glob to their brand, and it just becomes like people feel like it's a car show, not just a Tesla show, as the perception is nowadays. So when you start to even see like an e-tron or a VW or a Porsche come to those drive electrics in the future, it's only going to add more people that are going to want to drive the car. It's just going to happen.
Also, I like the Mercedes G-Wagon, the electric one. That one looked pretty neat with the spin move. That was super cool. The tank spin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, I just test drove that Mercedes
Oh.
EQE. We drove past Tesla, and I drove past an officer who was pulling somebody over, and we shook the cars, let's put it that way, to the next exit. And I was easily able to keep up with a Tesla. And that was a Model X with a P100D on it. And that is not just an impressive vehicle to drive, but as you know, with Mercedes, that's an impressive vehicle to be in. It's just gorgeous.
So, in thinking another aspect of EVs, and so a sister car company to Audi, the VW ID4, one of our members, I don't think he's on anymore at the call here today, but he's been towing his camper, and he and his wife and their two small kids love going camping, and that use their ID4 to pull that.
I'd love to see a picture of that, because I would share that with people so that they would feel confident in doing that kind of stuff.
Another
So,
member is still on here now, I see, and she's using her Hyundai to pull her camper, and it's a 10 camper, and then she likes using an electric cooler, which she can power off the car. So that's another aspect that's coming on more and more EVs, is to be able to get 120 volts AC, like 1500 watts, so the same that you would get out of a regular outlet, not just 100 like some of these 12 volt type inverters. But and so again, at Wings and Wheels that I mentioned before, she was showing on a regular screen that she brought along videos of our meetings to folks. So she
oh, that's wonderful.
power out of the car, pull a camper. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I
am super into overlanding and,
Uh-huh.
rock crawling and stuff like that. And so the Cybertruck, I keep up with all of its off-road adventures, but I
Okay.
think, also the overlanding camping community is, it's interesting to have friends text me and ask me about the battery packs and which ones are recommended. And I, have some insight on just, basic math, but, or physics, but, it's becoming, friends that I wouldn't expect are using words that I didn't expect them to use.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
never expected people to be saying kilowatt hours. Let's put it this way: in 2006, to hear people going, "What's the, what's the battery pack? How much is, what's in that battery?" Like, I just never expected these things. I recently went to just grab a cup of coffee, and I saw in front of me 4 different electric cars pull up. I'm like, okay. And it's those little things like that you see along the way that make you go, whoa, this thing is growing more than I ever expected. Uh, when I started with Build Your Own Electric Vehicle and pushing that whole concept back in early 2000, it was still so, Tesla had just not even come out. The Roadster was just out, but it just came out. And people still didn't wrap their heads around it. But it's people like us that have converted cars, that have been in this for a while, that just knew the technology would outpace us, and we're getting to that point beyond belief now. When you start putting 3 and look, I knew it was going to get big inevitably when I was talking with Lexus at the Detroit Auto Show during press days, and they said, "Yeah, we know there's single motor, but what about when we start putting motors in every wheel?" And I said, "Now we're talking." So I know they get it. They're just waiting for the markets to come, and it's people like us that bring the markets. So
That development with the Aptera, with the motors and the wheels, we'll see how that flies. Yeah.
that's going to be something. That's another thing that's just going to, because it's so different, it's going to be a disruptor.
So I'd like to give an opportunity to new folks in the room, first of all, to say anything, but second of all, if you'd like to sign up on the sign-in sheet, you'll get the monthly announcements, which will include like Seth Lightman's name, for example, just because it comes out on the announcement. And so it's helpful, and we don't use that list for any other kind of thing than for our monthly meetings and our annual type events like what's coming up in April. Yeah, so if you're wanting to get added, be sure you give us an email, and we'll add you, because we've got what, 400 or 500 folks that get that, Colin?
Yeah, in that vicinity,
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, just to complement what you were just saying, we have 50 hardcore members, but my membership email blast goes out to about 280 to 300 people. So
that's
yeah,
not-
so yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. We got about a dozen folks in the room, and we had a dozen folks online, but a lot more, and of course, different people in different months and so forth, but a lot more.
right. Yeah.
follow and then come out, bring their family members out when there's a nice event like the one coming up on Discovery Green.
Yeah.
But
We have an interesting thing here too that happens where Drive Electric Month has become less of a thing, not by any reason of like wanting to, but because of the weather. Because in the East Coast, it's around hurricane season, and so it's constantly raining during that month now, and we've had so many rainouts and cancellations of that event just because of the month of it. It's interesting.
you talking about the September event?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So a lot more of them are doing Earth Month or Earth Day. That whole week becomes like the big Super Bowl nowadays around here, where everybody's doing Drive Electric campaigns.
Right, yeah, so the official Earth Day is April 22nd, and so Drive Electric Day is usually a weekend day before that, and now it's been declared that April is Drive Electric Earth Month. And then, of course, as you mentioned, in September, there's National Drive Electric Week, which is roughly the last week of September, and that way it hits 2 weekends. So it's kind of a total of 9 days, so that
Correct.
clubs can have events one weekend, the other weekend on either end of National Drive Electric Week, or they can do both. So,
Yeah, and again, like I was saying, there are more events that are occurring during Earth Month now than Drive Electric. So those 5 I was telling you about are just Earth Day Drive Electric events.
okay.
People are, yeah, so, yeah.
So we'll slowly wrap up here. So I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to include some discussion about the Cybertruck being out, the Fisker Ocean being out, and the Aptera. So I kind of weaved it into things as we talked today, but just a couple of last comments. The Fisker Oceans are finally being delivered to folks. So I know someone in Massachusetts, he happens to be my third cousin, but he just received his. He was expecting it last September, and then he kind of thought he'd get it in October, November, December. He finally got it in January. It had to go on a train from where it was built in Austria by Magnasteer to the Belgian port, where it was then shipped across the Atlantic. It ended up in New Jersey, was stuck there for a month or so, finally got released. Then he got it, but then because Massachusetts has some extra steps for getting license plates and registration, that he had it for like 10 days and he couldn't drive it. He's
Yep.
finally gotten it.
Yeah.
released, so he's really happy and he loves it. And I also saw a video on YouTube, someone else who posted it, how they love their Fisker Ocean. And so here in Texas, so maybe it's because of the factory being in Austin, we're starting to see some Cybertrucks in the wild. And
Oh, wow.
there's a new Tesla service center down in League City off the Gulf Freeway. And I was just told that they have delivered 3 of them to people in town, in Houston area. So they are starting to be on the road. So maybe you'll see one in the wild there in New York, Seth, before too long.
When I do, you're gonna get it, you'll get a photo.
All right, it sounds good. Sounds good.
I actually, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
So, I went on a trip last November, and on the way back, my friend lives in Temple, and so we stopped at the Buc-ee's. And if anybody knows about Elon Musk, he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff in Texas, everywhere in the small towns, Bastrop and whatever, all around Austin. So we stop at this Buc-ee's, and it's the most insane Buc-ee's we've ever seen of EV chargers. Like,
Ah,
I would say 80. I mean, I don't know, but like that many, it was insane.
Buc-ee's does everything big.
Yeah, it's a Buc-ee's, right? So then we were getting gas, unfortunately, and we see a Cybertruck charging, and so we pulled up, and surprisingly, I walked up to the dude, stuck my head in the window, because I mean I was just obsessed with the idea of this, and he started freaking out because I'm very when I see something I want to look at or do, I go for it. So, I literally stuck my head in the window and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And he starts freaking out, like, don't look at this. He doesn't want to get in trouble. But my friend snapped a photo of me doing that. So we saw it in November. But then the day after he released it, I was in Austin getting coffee and a guy pulls up in a Cybertruck. And, I hadn't had my coffee yet, so I wasn't quite as enthusiastic as I should have been, but I snapped some pictures and, I'm into suspension and, it's got 35s and it, sits down and the wheel wells, it tucks the tires up, whenever you park. I guess that's a setting, but very interesting. And then, when he hopped in, it lifted up and, drove off. And I'm not going to lie, I looked at some of the body panel gaps that everybody criticizes Tesla. And, for a prototype, that's what I would consider the Founder series. I can point out exactly, there's a corner where they have this folding, it's at the windshield corner, and it was on the Cybertruck, it was not the same as the left versus the right. So, but I mean, it's stainless steel, and if you know anything, like, trying to get it to bend exactly the exact same, it springs back. And so that was my critique.
Interesting.
But I'll be happy to send you to my photos. I just got a brand new phone, so like super high res, and
I'd love to see them, man. Yeah, totally. Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We can transmit those back and forth through the club email. Send them and we'll forward them on to Seth and then you'll have his email address.
All right, thanks.
All right. So any other questions or matters that folks would like to bring up? We'll close the meeting here now for this month and we'll see everybody second Thursday in March. Okay. Thanks a lot, Seth. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all. I really appreciate the time and willingness to speak to y'all. Thank you with that hand too. Thank you. I saw the hand.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay. All I had was leave, not end meeting. You have end meeting? You have end meeting that you can click on end meeting?
There it is.
Okay, and I just had leave. I was.